Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. I am so excited about today's video. It is part of the Open Invitation Christmas in July, which is hosted by Carrie with Mama Dares to DIY and Keisha with Sweet Urban Rose. I will have links to their channels as well as the playlist in my description box down below, so please make sure you go over and check out their videos as well and all the wonderful creations that everyone has contributed to this open invitation. Thank you for watching, and let's get on with DIY number 1. So for DIY number 1, I am going to be using this frame, this sign from the Dollar Tree, and I had a piece on the top that I just popped off, and I went ahead and took my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and painted all 4 sides of the outside of the sign. I'm also going to be using this really cute winter scene from a calendar that I just take the staples out of the calendar and carefully remove that so that I don't rip the bottom of the picture. Then I just line it up on my frame where I want it to be and then crease the sides down so that I can cut that to make sure it lines up on the frame where I want it. So after I cut the excess off, I put a generous amount of Mod Podge on top of the frame, making sure that I get all the front of the frame in good even coats. Then I place the photo or the picture on top of the frame, and then I get the wrinkles out with my little plastic scraper very gently and with my hand as well. And I let that set completely overnight, and then I take my X-Acto knife and cut the excess paper off. And if you don't get all of it, that's okay, because we are going to sand the little edges down. But once I get the majority of that off, I take the Mod Podge and put a generous even coat on top of that you want to make sure you let this completely dry, this step, before you go on to the next step of this DIY. So once that has completely dried, I take my little sanding block and sand the edges smooth and get any excess paper off. And then I'm going to take my drill and my drill bit, and it took me a couple of times, you guys, to figure out the right drill bit for this, because I'm going to be using these super cute LED string lights that I purchased at the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to pop all the little green pieces off until there's nothing on there but the little LED lights on the wire. And I do go ahead and put my batteries in and make sure they work before I go through all the trouble of putting this on there. But once I do determine the right drill bit size, I just line up the lights where I want them to be. I knew I wanted those to be on the little garland in the front on the fence. So I drill the hole and then position the light in there. And I'm taking this little sharp utensil I have there and just pushing the paper through so there's no excess paper inside of those little holes that I'm drilling. So I just drill like 5 little lights on one side of the garland and 5 little holes for the lights on the other side, and then pushing that paper through and just giving it a very light sand because I don't want that paper to tear. And then I'm going to take Mod Podge and go over the lights, the little holes that I drill, because I don't want the paper to tear. And then you can see the little bit of the top of the calendar because I wanted that bottom flush. So I'm going to blend that in. I started off with some blue and white, and then I realized that gray looked a lot better and blended a lot better than the blue and the white. So once I get that on there, the Mod Podge is still tacky at the bottom, which is great because when I put the lights in, it helps to hold those lights in as it's drying. So I go ahead and put those lights in, and then I taped the battery pack down with some tape to the bottom of the frame, and this is how it turned out when it was completely dry. It is so cute and I really like it. I hope you guys enjoyed this DIY. So let's move on to DIY number 2. I am going to be using 2 styrofoam balls that I purchased at the Dollar Tree, one slightly larger than the other. I purchased a 2-pack of socks from the Dollar Tree, but we're only going to use 1 pair. And I'm also going to be using these little white pom-poms, a wooden skewer. We're only going to need the tip of that, my black Sharpie. We also will be using some black paint because the Sharpie didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. A pink crayon, a paintbrush, some scissors, an elastic hairband, some orange paint, and my hot glue gun. So I'm going to begin by painting the tip of the skewer in orange and setting that to the side so it can dry. Then I hot glued the smaller styrofoam ball to the top center of the larger styrofoam ball and let that set so it's nice and dry. Then I take the sock and put it over the bottom of the styrofoam ball, putting the heel part of that sock in the back and getting it nice and snug on the bottom of that ball and pulling it up. As you guys know, we're making a snowman. Just pulling that up so that he has a nice little collar there, like a little top of his little sweater. So once I get that nice and snug where I want it, I'm going to hot glue the top part of his little sweater right there around the top part of the styrofoam ball. And I'm going to do that all the way around. It's going to also provide a good support for the top of the styrofoam ball to stay on the bottom styrofoam ball. Then I take the other sock and just make him a nice little stocking cap, and making sure I put the heel in the back. I'm going to glue that around on the front, the two sides, and the back. And I actually glued it down to the bottom of the other sock so it kind of looked like the stocking cap was over his sweater. Then I just determine how tall I want the little cap to be and just put my elastic hairband around there. This is going to hold it in place until this glue sets. But I'm just going to figure out exactly how tall I want it to be, get the little hairband nice and snug on there, fluff his little stocking cap out, and then I'm going to take my scissors and cut right above that elastic hairband. Squeezing those little pieces together, I take a little pom-pom and put a generous amount of hot glue on top of where we just cut the sock. So just make sure that you get all the little edges of that sock and put the pom-pom on top, and then leave that so that it can completely set up. I take the bottom and cut the bottom of the sock off. Now you could probably cut it really snug and glue it to the bottom, but I kind of like the way those little llamas were sitting, so I just put some glue in the middle and then kind of folded each side up, almost like a little diaper. You just fold the little middle up and then glue each side really tight to the middle. You're not even going to see it when he's sitting up anyways. So, but you could, if you wanted it to be flush, cut it even and pull it really tight and then glue it to the styrofoam ball. So once I get that on there and I like the way the front of his little sweater is looking, I'm going to take my Sharpie and draw his eyes. And I didn't like the way that was turning out because you could see a lot of the styrofoam through that. So I'm just going to take some black paint and fill in his eyes and make them nice and bright and open. And then I'm also going to take the same black paint and paint him a little mouth. And once I get his little mouth painted on there, I am going to snip the end of that skewer off so we can create his little nose. Then I just put a bead of hot glue right there where I want the little nose to be and put the little skewer end on there. And then I'm going to take these two pom-poms to create his little arms, and I figure out where I want his little arms to be and then just hot glue those, one on each side. And now the glue has set up for his little stocking cap, and I can remove that elastic hairband and fluff out his little stocking. And then I will take the pink crayon and just draw a little bit of blush on each side of his face. And I just think he's so cute. He turned out so adorable. And I set him on these little wooden blocks that you get from the Dollar Tree. You'll have to let me know what you think. Thanks, guys, so much for watching.